Welcome to the Cosmic Cafe show, where the paranormal is normal. My name is Eric Brown, and I'll be your host and server. For today's daily special at the cafe, we are brewing up alien abductions. Have you been a victim of an alien abduction? Hundreds to thousands of people claim to have been abducted and subjected to many things, including forced examinations of their naked body, medical procedures including impregnation, or having been injected with foreign implants in their body which tracks your every thought and movement. How does a person who feels they've been abducted deal with this trauma and get help? To help us find out, we have stopping by the cafe our good friend Les Velez, founder or co-founder of the OPUS, which is the Organization for the Paranormal Understanding and Support. Welcome, Les.
Hey, Eric, how are you?
Good to see you.
Thank you for having me tonight.
Yes.
I have a little bit of a laryngitis, so I'm going to try to get through this as best I can.
Well, I'm glad I shook your hand.
Yes, now you're going to get whatever I have.
Yeah.
But anyway, I want to start off by telling you a couple of stories.
Okay,
and
please.
I think that might set the stage for a further explanation of what OPUS does. Okay. One of the cases that we got involved with very early on was a case of 4 schoolgirls in Salinas.
Okay.
And they were walking home from school one afternoon, and one of the girls noticed this object, and the object kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger until finally it was only about 100 feet over their heads.
Wow.
One of the girls, as the ship turned, saw an alien.
Oh.
And she was obviously very shook up by this. Matter of fact, they all were shook up.
So
they all saw it.
They were on the ground and they saw the alien.
They saw the alien through the portal.
Wow.
And so they all ran home, tried to tell their parents. Of course, none of them believed, the story. And years later, this woman, now grown, contacted me, and we subsequently did a hypnotherapy session with her, and found out that in fact she was abducted later on from her bedroom. And so she was trying to deal with this constant thought that was going through her mind that something had happened, but she couldn't unearth it.
Okay.
So through hypnosis we were able to find out more what happened. She was brought on board the craft and an examination was done.
Wow.
So that's one story. Another story is a woman and her boyfriend was a ranger at Sunset Beach.
Okay.
In Salinas area.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and she and her boyfriend, who is a ranger, were coming home one night about dusk. Okay. And in a field near the opening of Sunset Beach, there was this orange object that was there, bright orange orb. And the next thing they know, because sunset at that time of the year was around 5-ish.
Okay.
Next thing they know, they're down at the trailer where he was actually living.
Okay.
And it was like 9 o'clock. So they had all this missing time, which is one of the characteristics of an abduction, is that you have missing time.
Right, okay.
And they couldn't explain it. And so they went to bed. And that evening, while she was in a state of paralysis, and the dog, they had a German Shepherd, the dog was basically knocked out. Entities came into the trailer and took him through the side of the trailer. I mean, literally, without opening any windows or doors, just he went right through the side of the trailer.
Through the wall.
The wall of the trailer.
Not the window or the door, but the wall.
The wall.
So they wow.
So somehow
and she was frozen.
She wasn't able to do anything. She couldn't talk. She was totally paralyzed.
Wow.
Which again is something that is typical of one person being taken and another person maybe observing it and then not being able to do anything about it. So when he came back, he was so freaked out by this whole process.
I think so.
that he basically took off. And we have not been able to find this ranger. He just totally disappeared.
Okay.
And so she was obviously very upset by the whole process. And we did some hypnotherapy on her as well, and this is when it all came out as to what had happened.
Oh,
Because
okay.
she didn't realize, other than that night with that conscious memory, but it was almost like a weird dream.
Okay.
And so we put pieces together of the puzzle, and then it all kind of meshed.
Right, right.
The last case I want to talk about, before I get into a little bit more about what OPUS does, is a case of two amateur pilots that live in Santa Cruz. And they were in Butano State Park. And they were had a picnic, and man and a woman, husband and wife. And they were coming out of the park. And they were looking out over the ocean, and they noticed this light. And the light kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
Oh.
And as they stood there, and this object started to come over their head, they noticed it was a triangular craft, triangular in shape.
Oh.
And it went over their heads into this canyon area. And it sat there, and it did this butterfly effect, which is typical of how UFOs sometimes operate. And so this was pretty shocking to have that happen.
Yeah.
But then there was another light that they noticed, and it was coming in again. Turned out to be a triangular craft, another one.
Wow.
The first one, they looked at it, okay. The second one, they felt they were being looked at. So they started to get a little bit nervous about it, so they backed up underneath this big old pine tree. This happened 3 more times for a total of 5 craft.
That same evening?
That same evening.
Wow.
That sat in this canyon, and the 5 of them were basically horizontal. And then they all tilted up, all 5 of them in this vertical position, and it's like they went around a corner and totally disappeared. So they went into another dimension or something, because there is no corner to go around.
Yeah.
And they just disappeared. In that process, so when that happened, they started to run out of there, and I was up in that area.
Right.
And trying to get out of there during the day, it's difficult. And this was already dark now.
Yeah.
And getting out of there, they lost time. The next thing they know, they're in Pescadero, sitting in a restaurant.
Huh? They dropped them off in a restaurant?
They don't know how they got there. They totally lost like 3 hours of time.
Oh, wow.
And so the couple came to one of the support group meetings, and OPUS does have a local support group that meets on a fairly regular basis. And
maybe I ask you real quickly about that support group.
Yeah.
Because just so people know, what is your support group? I mean, you guys have a very impressive support staff and what you do in the
let me talk about the mission then, or what we do, and a little bit of the history.
Okay.
First of all, the mission of OPUS is to help people having paranormal
If you need to take water, please
Yes.
go ahead. We understand you have the laryngitis.
Right.
So.
And I will take a little sip.
Yeah,
Excuse
please
me.
go ahead. So. Yeah.
And what we do is we have a network of medical doctors, mental health practitioners, hypnotherapists, and various types of consultants that are there to help people.
That's what really impressed me about your organization. One reason why I wanted you to stop by the cafe was when I saw that, I was like, these guys are just more than a website or a blog or something, or a couple of guys running around, saying they're helping people. No, I mean, you got real doctors, real professionals. It's
correct.
It's you treat everything very seriously, as it should be.
Absolutely, because people are traumatized, and you have to take that seriously and try to get them the kind of help that they need. And one of the things that we've developed over the years is a online support group, which is totally confidential. The only way you get in there is either talking to me, or you talk to the president of OPUS, which is June Steiner, which I understand she's going to be on a subsequent show that you're going to have. And this online support group is great, because if you're not here locally, you can access that site and people are constantly talking to one. We almost have 100 people now in the online support group from all over the world. We have people from the UK, from South America, from Australia, predominantly the United States. But they have a way of talking to one another. And we found that the best medicine for this type of a situation is for them to be able to talk to other people that have had similar circumstances in their lives.
Right. Well, that makes sense. You know, you need someone who knows what you're going through and
Right.
can experience. So
let me finish a little bit of that story.
yes, please.
Because the next part is really interesting in the sense that these people ended up in our support group in
Okay.
San Jose, which is where we generally meet.
And these are the people that had the 5 UFOs that
Right.
turned side. Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
Well, after that event, they both broke out in a rash. Okay, and they
Oh.
went to a doctor, and one doctor said, well, you know, it could be something external, like, you know, poison oak,
Right, sure.
poison ivy, something very normal.
I'll confess that
Yeah.
was my first thought.
Right. Except that they weren't in contact with any of that they can recall. Okay, so they didn't buy that. They went to another doctor, and he said, well, no, it doesn't look like poison ivy or poison oak.
Okay.
It may be something internal that caused it.
Oh,
And
okay.
so anyway, they still didn't buy that. They said, no, we haven't been doing anything different that would cause something like that. So they took a picture.
Oh.
And as it turned out, this rash happened to be around their genital areas.
Oh.
So
So I guess we can't show that picture.
no, I don't have that one. So they showed the picture to the group that
Okay.
was there. And almost without exception, everyone in the group said they had a similar rash at one point
Oh.
during their abductions.
Wow.
And one of the women in the group said, I know what that's from.
Now you're talking about your big networking group, not the.
No, this is
not
the local support group.
Right. I meant that's what I meant.
Yeah.
Your local support
Right.
group. Other people than these.
Yes,
all,
right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah,
So,
there was about 15 people there that day.
but other people recognize the same type of rash and
Right.
said, so that's
Correct.
a huge benefit of your group because you can
Right.
start sharing and comparing notes. And,
Exactly, exactly.
Okay, I understand.
So the one woman says, I know what that is. And of course we all say, so what is it? And she says it's the reaction to the fluid they dip you in to sanitize you when they bring you on board the craft.
Oh.
So, you know, we're all sitting there, oh my goodness, okay. And, you know, this again is something that is a physical thing. And I'd like to go to slide 3 if we can. I know it's not in order. If that's going to cause a problem, we can go to slide 2. Okay, great, thank you. One of the things also that people come back with are marks. Some
Looks
are
like there's
scoop
something
marks.
on her knuckle there.
Yeah, there's 3 dots, okay? And a lot of times people come back after these experiences with marks on their bodies, sometimes scoop marks, so various types of physical markings on their body,
Okay.
which is one of the things that people talk about when they've had their abduction, that they know, you know, I didn't have this in the morning,
Yeah.
you know, and now I'm here and I've got this mark, and there's no way that I did this.
Okay, that makes sense.
Another thing that you mentioned earlier was about implants. Could we go
Yes.
to slide 4, please?
And so tell us a little bit while they're getting that slide up.
Sure. Well, as you mentioned, this is another thing that
They have
abductees
it up now.
have talked about, where they feel that they've got an implant of
Okay.
some sort. Sometimes they feel it, you know, like a little bump on your neck or something like that, or something on your leg, in various parts of your body, in your ear, in your nose. There's been X-rays of these things. The slide that we're showing right now is one of the implants that was taken out by Dr. John Lear down in Southern California, who just recently passed away. And they found that these things are not rejected by the body, which is usually the case. So there's some mechanism going on there that causes the the body not to reject the object. And also, they've also noticed transmissions that they've been able to detect from these objects, which is highly unusual.
Yeah.
and it goes back to the tracking that you mentioned
Yeah,
earlier.
it does beg the question.
It actually does that. So anyway, if we can go to the next slide. You know, we talk about, well, what do these aliens look like?
Yeah.
And predominantly they talk about the small grays, you know, 3-4 foot high, almost android-like in their actions. Big almond eyes, you know, bulbous head. The picture there shows some of the short ones and some of the blue ones. We have Nordics, which look just like you and I, maybe even better.
Maybe so, yeah.
Okay.
Definitely better than me. If you need to get water, feel free.
Yeah, I'm good. Yeah. And then I will.
I don't want you to lose your voice halfway through the show.
Then you have the reptilians.
Yeah.
You have insectoids that look like praying mantises.
Those scare me. I've seen pictures of drawings of those. And
these are described by people that have been abducted.
yeah.
And when I was, I did a study along with MUFON, the Mutual UFO Network, and we took 72 people that felt they were abductees, and another group of similar size that was a control group. And we subjected them to psychological testing and basically came away with the fact that they're not fantasy prone. They're not suffering from any mental illness. They have some temporal lobe activity that's somewhat different. And that most of them had some kind of trauma in early childhood, which made them look at life a little differently and opened them up to certain things. There's going to be another study done. But the bottom line on all this, these people aren't crazy. Something has happened to them. And the big question is, what is it? You know?
Yeah.
And if we can go to the next slide.
I think while they're pulling up the next slide.
Yeah.
Oh, there we
That's
go.
good. Yeah. The, you know, what I talk about is, are these people extra, you know, the experiences, is it extraterrestrial in nature? Is it time travelers? Is it interdimensional?
Right.
And I think the bottom line on all this is the fact that it could be all the above, or almost anything you can possibly think of. I think, you know, this reality that we're in, what is it?
Yeah.
And what other realities are out there?
Right.
And sometimes I think, you know, if you look at string theory and you have these multiple dimensions, and sometimes these dimensions touch.
Yes.
And when that happens, perhaps they're coming across. There was a case in 1980 in the UK, in Rendlesham Forest, near Bentwaters Air Force Base, where this object came down. 2 security people were taken. And when they came back, and this is well documented, this is probably one of the best cases that you can possibly look at with regard to alien involvement and interaction with humans. As a matter of fact, there's a new book out by Nick Pope, who you should try to get on your show, and he's here local now.
Yeah, I understand he's there right here in San Jose.
That's right.
Yes.
So, and he's just written a new book about that.
Yes.
And he'd be a fascinating guest for you. But anyway, when these people came back, what they said was that these were time travelers.
Yeah, is that something?
40,000 years in the future that have come back to basically collect some DNA material.
What was this? Wasn't it something like they said, we are you, or something?
Yes.
Something like that,
Exactly.
right?
Exactly.
So it really leaves it open to interpretation. What
Right.
do you mean by that?
Right. Exactly.
Definitely a superior.
And I think too, it goes to, you know, what is it? are they here for the good of mankind, or are they evil? Or are they just like we are here on Earth, that we have good people and we have bad people,
Right.
you know?
Yeah.
And so it's certainly, when I hear people talk about the fact are they all good or are they all bad?
Yeah.
I said they're probably a mixture of everything.
Right.
And the possibilities are just endless. But the fact is that Opus is here to help people that are having these experiences, getting them together with people that have had similar circumstances, trying to understand what each situation is,
Yeah.
and giving them the kind of help that they need.
Let me ask you right there. You say giving them the help that they need. Let's say going home tonight, I get abducted, I lose time, and I need to get help.
Sure.
And it's just totally freaked me out. So
Sure.
I hear about Opus, hopefully on this show, and so I contact you.
Right.
Take me through the steps as a new person who, has this. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. So how do you help?
Well, the first thing we do is we talk to you and find out, what it is that, you want to explore.
Okay.
Sometimes people, if they have missing time, they want to find out what's happened during that period of time.
Sure.
Which we can try to help them with. But we also caution people that you may find out something you don't really want to know.
Oh, I never thought about that.
Yeah. So we want to make sure that you understand that this process may bring up something that may shake up your reality.
Right. Okay.
And so, but I think the most important thing to do is to be able to talk to us.
Okay.
And get that dialogue going. And then if you want to, a lot of times people think they're going crazy, absolutely going crazy.
Okay.
And they go to a psychologist or a psychiatrist first, and they find out that they're not crazy. And then they say, okay, now what?
Right.
And so one of the things we're trying to do too is educate the medical profession to understand that there is this phenomena out there, and that it needs to be addressed, and not just sloughed off and said, well, there's just nothing important, but
Right.
it is important. And I think what it becomes in the end for each of these people that have this experience is a spiritual journey.
Right. Yeah. I can imagine.
I'm not saying a religious journey. It's
Sure.
a spiritual journey. It's understanding that we need to be good citizens of the earth, take care of one another, do the right thing.
Right.
And that's a really good outcome of these maybe horrible things that people talk about.
Right. Right.
Because there are like 3 phases of the process, where in the beginning people are really freaked out, then they come to accept it, and then when it stops, they say, what happened? Why are they not coming back?
Now, I understand we're getting a little bit tight on our time now. We're getting close to the end of the show, so
All
I
right.
want to make sure that you give everybody the information on how to get in
Sure.
touch with you and with Opus
Absolutely.
Network. So please let everybody
All right.
know, and then maybe we got time for a question or two.
Sure. Well, take a look at our website at opusnetwork.org.
Okay.
And we have a website there that talks about our mission, how we give support, contact numbers of myself and June Steiner, who's the president of Opus, and pretty much gives you various tabs that you can click on, which Clinical Corner, where we talk about various things that people have talked about, and June has written a number of articles that are in there from her perspective, and there's links to other sites that might be of interest, and we talk about other types of things other than abductions. Poltergeist activity, spiritual Kundalini awakening, various things of that nature. So it's a broad brush type of thing, but as it turns out, we've been really most of the cases have been abduction type cases, where people have needed that kind of help.
That's good to know. And of course, I remember you mentioned earlier that their confidentiality is strictly
Absolutely.
maintained.
Absolutely.
Which I know would be important to me. So I can imagine it would be for any of the viewers watching our show today. So that's really good to know that you're out there. So Well, I think we have a little bit of time for
Sure.
maybe one last quick story or another recommendation you could give to someone who may have just recently gone through a traumatic abduction event or believe they have. Maybe give us another.
Sure. The kind of an interesting story of how Opus got started, really, was a woman down in Carmel called me after I was written up in the Monterey Coast Weekly paper about what I did for MUFON, because I'm also a member of MUFON. And she said, I'd like to get some help with analyzing my brain waves
Wow.
when I'm in contact with these off-earthly entities. So,
And she just called you.
because
that's
I
what
was
she
written,
said.
yeah, and that's
Yeah.
what she said.
Wow.
And so I called a doctor friend of mine, Eugene Lipson, who actually was the co-founder with me, and who's no longer part of the organization. But we went down there, and she was working with a doctor down there who was an emergency room doctor, and we had this incredible afternoon with her. She became psychic after a near-death experience.
Oh, wow.
And during that process, she was able to contact people that were dead, off-earthly entities. And
Wow.
one of the things that she did, she actually worked with some treasure hunters in the Caribbean
Uh-huh.
and helped them find some Spanish galleon.
Oh.
And she had a
But
newspaper article of what she did. And how she found this galleon was she got in contact with the captain of the galleon.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah. So anyway, it blew us away. We walked away from there and said, how can we possibly help this person?
Right.
And so we decided to form this nonprofit organization, which Opus is a 501(c) nonprofit group, officially, noticed by the IRS.
Well, thank you very much, Les, for stopping by today.
Sure.
We are all out of time today, so I want to thank everybody, including yourself with Opus and everything that you do. I want to thank everybody with the Media Center, and especially our viewer patrons for stopping by the cafe today. Thank you very, very much for that. And hopefully, if you have been abducted by an alien, you will get in touch with the good folks at opusnetwork.org. Find out more about our guests and shows on cosmiccafeshow.com. Thanks again to the Media Center and everyone who's helped make the show possible.